It's difficult to know exactly where to start when talking about why Kaiju No. 8 is my favorite new shonen fighting anime but let's try to put it into one sentence. Kaiju No. 8 simply pushes all the right buttons for me. So if you don't mind, allow me to just gush about it for a while. Kaiju No. 8 is cool, it's funny, it's sexy, it's stylish, it has older protagonists with older people's problem mentalities, and it plays into everything that I think we all love about shonen, most generally speaking, while not taking itself too seriously. The fights are engaging and always look awesome. Both the guys and gals, the young and the old, get to have the spotlight from time to time. The jokes are funny and fully committed both verbally and visually, and the world building is frankly just brilliant. The show knows how to be funny, badass, and at times, downright terrifying. It just manages to hit every emotion like it was easy. The soundtrack, best I've heard in ages, period. It's got so much diversity it isn't even funny. From jazz, to rap, to rock, yes, including guitar solos, to ambient, to orchestral, to synthwave and cyberpunk music. To one track that takes me straight back to that freaking Kill la Kill scene where What's-Her-Face in the crazy dress showed up and that crazy choir boss music started playing. They even went so far as to get original English songs for both the OP and ED, and crafted a unique anime opening sequence which can really only be compared to electronic dance music visualizers made in FL Studio. No one but me will get that joke, but that's okay. The point is, the soundtrack is literally perfect. It's just got everything in the music department on lock, and the songs are always placed in the perfect spots. Well, I mean, there were times when One Republic blasting after a dramatic moment was kinda weird, but I mean, other than that, one of the early standouts was the jazz that played while they were cleaning up the town soaked in kaiju entrails and literal shit. It was absolutely perfect to make the scene hilarious before a word was even uttered. Just groovy jazz and one of the most disgusting cleanup sessions you've ever seen, working hand in hand to create something inherently funny that also contributed to the feel of the world building. And no matter what is happening on screen, it always looks magnificent. The best fights look as good as anything else coming out of Ufotable or Mappa or Toei or Madhouse or any other studio I can think of. Whether it's a drawn out high stakes fight or a one and done clobbering. The jokes fully commit to the visual comedy, repeatedly making the main character's scary kaiju form into one of the funniest looking things in the entire show. Hell, the characters look great just standing around, even if I still think their eyes are a little far apart sometimes, you know, it's cool though, it just looks a little derpy in my opinion.
Uh-oh, Richard!
This is production IG, so it's no surprise that it looks so damn good. But what never ceases to amaze me is what these guys can do even when there are CG elements all over the screen, or 2D elements mapped out in a 3D environment. Similarly to their other recent production Heavenly Delusion, Kaiju No. 8 is a reminder that sometimes CG can just look good and right and decently composited into the scene, like it actually belongs there in the production pipeline. Like it actually benefits the show visually. Not many studios ever make use of these techniques in the way that Production IG has been with its best shows lately. And it's a beauty to behold because I know that it nets us wonderfully dynamic scenes that we frankly just wouldn't have gotten otherwise. The long and short of it is that last season's new weekly ritual was without a doubt watching new episodes of Kaiju No. 8, and I cannot wait to wait painfully 1 week at a time for new episodes again when it returns. Now I'm not going to pretend that I've picked up on any brilliant theme stuff in the story so far, outside of just representing older viewpoints in relatively unique ways for modern anime. But I'm also not going to pretend that this especially bothers me, when there's just so much entertainment value and so much to love otherwise. I just love watching all of these characters play their parts, and the world building itself is reminiscent of everything I love from Fire Force, but on steroids from the first freaking episode. It shows us a really well thought out world, where kaiju are portrayed as something more akin to natural disasters than anything. And loosely or not, I'd argue this metaphorical representation kinda even holds true all the way up until Kaiju No. 10 shows up, blowing in like a bad wind with scattered wyverns all around. Along with these natural disaster-like kaiju come along the news media, infrastructure, emergency procedures, bureaucratic processes, and of course even the cleanup duties. And all of that stuff is fed to us in clever and unobtrusive ways throughout the season, all the way down to the freaking kaiju traffic lights and such. You can tell that the author really thought deeply about how a society and its military forces would react and adjust to the existence of these monsters. That is all to say that even if I can't think of any grandiose, unique, and fascinating theme things that I've gotten out of it so far, that hasn't kept me from thinking back to it often. And that does not mean that it is not a brilliant work with great world building and characters that I just just love watching do cool things in this cool, well thought out world that is brilliantly rendered in exquisite detail, supported by a breathtaking soundtrack and awesome sound effects, capable of pulling me through all the emotional highs and lows of mundane nights, quirky comedy, hype fights, and horrific realities, and of course, everything in between. Great characters, a fascinating world, genuinely great comedy, and wonderfully consistent production values, just downright freaking fun, can take you so far. And maybe what I'm trying to say is the show has what I can only describe as soul and quality craftsmanship. You can tell that at every stage of development, from original concept and source material to compositing and final touches, from chapter 1 to episode 12, people cared about the characters, about the details of the world, and of course, about the production values. But let's talk about some specifics for a bit. One thing that of course sets this shonen apart from others in the writing department is the 30-year-old protagonist, sitting in his apartment drinking, wondering how his life wound up like this when he had such high hopes and such specific ambitions for where his life was going. He just liked me for real. I mean, really? Faceless anime videos? I was supposed to be a rock star! There was a wonderful touch of subtlety and nuance in this characterization of him as well. Even from the beginning, although he was up drinking after work, having a crisis of identity and ambition, and seemed to have all but given up on the surface, the show made it clear within the first few episodes that failure or not, he always made the effort to retake the Kaiju Defense Force tests every time they came back around, up until he hit the age limit. And complainer or not, he always did his day job properly. And I know that a lot of people are going to complain that our MC-kun still manages to supposedly act like a kid often, but I have to wonder how many of those people have simply forgotten that they're watching anime. This is a visual medium with visual jokes. There are going to be simplified, stylized, and exaggerated expressions. There are going to be wacky kinetic animations and pre-written jokes with punchlines that are just supposed to be funny. Loosen up a little. And on top of that, I think a lot of people forget that anime characters ultimately tend to act more like ageless blobs than anything. Abstract medium meant to, entertain and all that, but let's skip that rant and talk more about the visual comedy. Speaking of loosening up, this show has some of the best visual comedy I've seen in shonen anime in many years. And I'm not talking about guys getting slapped, nosebleeds, walking into the wrong bathrooms. I'm talking about the kaiju MC peeing out of his nipples, involuntarily eating animals with alien references, and trying with every fiber of his being to still look cute for the kids, even though he's become a horrifying monstrosity against his will. I'm talking about setups with punchlines. I'm talking about showing the grossest stuff imaginable while playing upbeat jazz, actual jokes that never felt stale, and actually made me laugh audibly every week, week after week. Obviously, we also have to talk about the battles, which were always a spectacle. Although they started as little more than flashy spectacle pieces, decisive victories avoiding lengthy, drawn-out, tense dramatics, the season managed to slowly and naturally increase the length and drama as battles evolved into more and more high-stake affairs with that classic shonen, now you're on top, now you're the underdog, back and forth kind of action, ultimately culminating in our slow realization that the kaiju are in fact far more terrifying and far more deliberate than the show allowed us to believe at the onset. Now, I don't think that it's literally perfect, and I could sit here and prattle on for a full minute or more about what and why my two minor issues were, but I'm gonna save you the time. A, I wish episode 1 had ended with a joke like the manga. Jokes are cool, dramatic cliffhangers are dumb. The two main characters aren't going to kill each other in episode 2, literally no one believes you. B, Mina's bath scene panel was sexy as hell in the manga. Mainstream anime was literally a mistake, literally who cares, 10 out of 10. I'll be damned if it ain't just so good that I don't really care about the occasional minor complaints I had. These would just be the indulgent, don't make it marketable, make it perfect kind of cherries on top for me, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring them up. But what about you, weary traveler wandering through the wrong side of AniTube? How are you feeling about Kaiju number 8 so far?